Well, from one Senate president to the current one, Bill Cadman from Colorado Springs. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is your last year.
This is it.
You're gone
you can't
after that.
make me do this any longer.
I don't have to deal with you anymore after this.
Well, not in this capacity, but I'm not going away.
All right. Knowing what you know now, would you have ever taken the job as Senate president? This is, with a split legislature,
Sure.
Everything goes right through you.
Sure, absolutely. I would take this. It's such an honor. I mean, very few are privileged to serve in this capacity. You just mentioned President John Andrews, who was the last Republican Senate president. And serving in that capacity behind someone who's done what he's done is a huge challenge as well, because he really set the standard.
But in order for
he served in a split legislature.
But in order for you to do your job, not only do you have to hack off a lot of people on the other party, you actually have to hack off a lot of people in your own party. Yeah. It's the joy of leadership.
Well, it's a fantastic system, and you say I hate it except for everything else, right?
All right. Talk to me a little bit about the money.
Sure.
Because I keep hearing we're in a crisis. We don't have enough money.
Sure.
We never have enough money. This year now, we still don't have enough money. Hey, I listen to NPR.
Yeah.
I know that Colorado is broke, and it's all because of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights,
Sure.
and you guys need to fix it.
Yeah.
Are we in crisis?
You know, if you call an additional $340 million of general fund money over last year a crisis, yes. But that's the kind of crisis I wish I had in my own life. I wish I had that kind of problems in my own budget.
So we've got more tax revenue coming in by over $1/3 billion this year compared to last year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is good news.
So yeah, it's absolutely good news. And when you say we are hearing budget crisis, that's not coming from us. It's coming from some folks who have, I think, some other intentions. Though we don't spend time speculating other people's motives, they do become obvious.
So why are they calling for more money? And I want to get to the hospital provider fee.
Sure.
But this was something that wasn't a surprise to anyone who could do math. Let me see if I got the numbers right and tell me. We've grown in the last few years. The state's grown by about 20% in population. Revenue has grown by about 20% in population. Medicaid enrollment has gone up 350%.
Absolutely.
Do I have that right?
Absolutely.
And because of that, it's squeezing out other things.
Yes, yes. So you're right. We've grown a little over 20% in those categories. K-12 registration, prison population, higher ed. The general fund has grown almost 50%. Almost 50%. Part of that's from the REF-C timeout. We were able to keep more money in the general fund. But we do have one program that has grown 350% in that same amount of time. And if you look back just 1 year ago, the growth was only 270% or 280%. So think of the growth in just the last year. And at the peak, about a year and a half ago, we were adding about 14,000 people a month to this program. And you can call this an offshoot of Obamacare, because that's really what it is.
All right, so when Obamacare was coming, and when Bill Ritter decided to increase Medicaid, and the exchange came and all the rest, we were saying you can't quadruple people on the dole without it costing a lot more money. And part of me for being skeptical, but I think they understood the arithmetic too, that if you increase the amount of people going in who are dependent on this, sooner or later it's going to cause a financial crisis and we'll get a tax increase.
Well, and it started immediately, and I actually pulled up some of my notes from being a part of the debate in '09 for an additional increase in an additional expansion under that program. And I basically said, what you're doing is NSF, right? You're writing, the old days when you wrote checks, if you didn't have the money in the bank to pay for them.
I've never had one of those return NSF. I don't know what you're talking about.
An education, this is history, right? Non-sufficient funds. And basically, for every dollar that we take from the federal government for this program, actually for every dollar that the federal government adds to our national debt that our kids get to pay for down the road, we're taking a dollar from them currently because it's coming out of K-12, it's coming out of transportation, it's coming out of every other thing that we expect state services to provide and that we expect our tax revenues to fund.
We could go a little bit more philosophically and say that the money that's coming from the feds to match all this is paper money, and it's debt that our kids are going to have to pay for later on.
Yeah,
right,
we're paying for it now and later.
Let me see if I'm following the hospital provider fee the right way. So there's a wonderful shell game that happens, and it's called the hospital provider fee. Every other state and the federal government calls it a tax. We call it a fee, so we don't have to vote on it in Tabor. You take the money from people going to hospitals, and it's not even allowed to be seen on their bill when they go to a hospital. By law, you can't say, here's part of the fee. So it's had to be built in. Says. And we put it in this checking account. We write a check to that checking account. The feds then match that, and then we disperse it. The thought by our governor is to take this amount, which is, what, $800 million
It's coming up on $800 million.
$800 million, and remove it from the general fund and say it's not really part of government. And therefore, we don't have to ask the people for this tax increase. We'll put it over here, and that way we won't get our tax refunds or Tabor refunds because of this shell game if we expand it and pull it out that way. Do I have it right?
It's pretty close, John. I mean, you're technically accurate. We have they want to enterprise it. We have a dozen other enterprises. We have state-owned parking garages. We have higher education enterprises, things that generate revenues through that enterprise that pay for services, etc.
But each one of those enterprises, there's something there. There's a parking garage,
you get something,
or a college building,
right.
And this one, all it is,
very unique.
Is a bank account.
Yeah.
There's no there.
Right.
So to turn it into an enterprise is nonsensical, but yet the governor wants to do this, the Democrats want to do this, and maybe a few Republicans. I found it interesting when Todd Shepard of Complete Colorado got an audio of the governor saying, basically, we need to do it this way, because if we brought this to the people, our polls show it wouldn't pass. So they're trying to pass something that's going to cost us millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that we don't want. And you're the guy in the hot seat. You're the one person that has stopped this from becoming a reality. I can't imagine the pressure you're under. I can't imagine everywhere you go, this isn't what people are asking you about.
Well, it's been pretty significant, and the governor went around the state I think it was last spring and into the summer, basically riding a Trojan horse, offering vouchers for people to come cash at my office based on the hospital provider fee. I mean, virtually anybody that has some stake in the budget thinks that this could be an improvement to their situation. While there is no guarantee, even if it could pass or should pass or did pass, there's certainly no assurance. It's kind of like the commercial where the guy has the fishing pole and says, "You want $1? You want $1? Come get it." Oh, you got to be quicker than that. Everybody thinks they're going to get some pool of money into their specific interest, and again, there's just no assurances that any of that could happen.
So the amount of pressure you're under is just got to be amazing. Well, isn't there a solution though? Give me the answer. If the answer is not this sleight of hand bureaucratic trick, and it really is underhanded to basically take $800 million, put it off budget without a vote of the people, denying us our Tabor refunds, well then what are you going to do? You've heard some of my solutions, but what is it that Republican leadership wants to do about this situation?
Well, it kind of gets back to where we started, which is, there's a budget crisis we have to fix. These are the cue and the cry about this budget crisis, when if you look at it in reality, there is not the crisis that we are being sold. And so they're trying to, I'd call it a smokescreen. If you create a fire that you can draw everybody's attention to, they kind of forget the reality, and the reality is we're not in the crisis that they're asserting. So, frankly, we are budgeting to current law. That's how the process works. The process has already started. As I mentioned earlier, we have $100 million of supplemental, negative supplementals. I mean, a negative supplemental sounds bad, but it's a good thing.
What is a negative supplemental?
A supplemental is in addition to the previous budget. Typically, people come back and they might need more money for something. And currently, the biggest number that we're seeing is in a lower growth in K-12. And so with that, we budgeted higher than it turned out we needed. So now we're looking at almost 85 or $90 million of general fund that's not going to be needed in K-12.
A couple years
ago, last year's budget.
When Republicans took back the Senate by one single vote.
I remember that night.
Now, you might have been happier. There was one guy who was even happier, and that was John Hickenlooper. Because for the 2 years before that, he had an out-of-control Democratic legislature that was passing everything from gun control laws that he wasn't that wild about signing to changes in voter law, changes in environmental law.
Right.
I mean,
renewable energy
it was just
standards.
he didn't veto a thing.
Yeah.
He needed you as a stopgap, and now a lot of that craziness doesn't get to his desk. But he's got to be frustrated now that the thing he wants isn't getting to his desk. Do you and he have conversations about this?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been talking about this exact thing for well over a year. I took a very, very hard look at this, at what we would consider a way to do it that followed the Constitution, to enterprise this specific issue, just like we do another dozen issues in the state. With that, though, even the answer that would have come up, that we could have come up with under a constitutional scenario, didn't provide them the flexibility to spend $750 million that they didn't have now, and we probably would have
What I know about Tabor haters, they are the undead. So even though this path looks dead to them, they will find another way to try to keep these Tabor refunds some way, somehow. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, it's constant. It's constant, as you know. But frankly, the Constitution's pretty clear. And last time I looked, we all swore to uphold it. So
that never stopped them in the past.
It sort of by default makes it easier if you believe in it.
All right, let's talk about some of the other fun issues, because it's an election. It's an election year, and therefore we're going to have all sorts of bills that people are going to run on or run against. There's a death with dignity bills. There'll be some gun bills. There'll probably be some abortion-like issues. What's the hot issue that's going to make it this year?
You know, that'll make it through the system?
Well, or make
right.
it...
So, a couple significant issues, as you mentioned, the assisted suicide. Actually, we had the Senate hearing on that yesterday, and I stopped by and just watched for a while, and it really brings, you know, the seriousness of these jobs forward, and listening to the testimony and the passion, and seeing people that are suffering. And so that's one that evokes a lot of emotion. It turned out a lot of people. You'll see a bill this year to change the limits on judges and the death penalty on the jury system. Also a significant issue. We all face that with the Holmes trial. We're
going to have to close it up.
Sure.
Can we agree Broncos by what, 7, 8?
I say Broncos by anything is a good day.
Good day. Senator, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.